I don't care.
No. We're far enough away.
Yeah.
And we're speaking, and the governor gave us rights as speakers teaching to have our mask off. We'll stay away from each other though.
Yep.
Get over
Although
here.
with my latest, I feel like the safest person in the world now.
Yeah, right.
Because I'm double vaccinated. I've got antibodies
You got, double vaccinated because you have the antibodies.
and the antibodies.
Did anyone else here do the J&J? I did the J&J.
No, I did not.
And it hurt very
I heard that.
bad. And I went under 3-degree fever for like 5 hours.
Oh,
It was awful.
that sounds horrible.
Ugh.
Well, like I said, but like when my wife and I are trying to plan like vacations and outings, she's like, I'm like, well, I don't care, I'll go anywhere. She's like, well, I don't know if I want to go up there. Get over it.
She didn't get
She
it.
didn't get it. No, nobody in my family got it.
Just checking the slide to see if anybody, just you. Well, that's good because you got your
Yeah.
mom there.
Yeah.
Okay,
So, week closing, day of closing, post
week,
week of
week,
closing.
like the whole week. It
Okay.
could be closing in the middle of the week and we can go after, right? Because that's
Yeah,
important.
yeah.
So we're gonna cover everything. Closing week is like super, super important.
Right.
I know we find a lot of agents, they're like, okay, we're done with inspections.
Mhm.
Now what?
Yeah.
Right? And we
So-
get to the appraisal, which we talk
Totally.
about in the additional addendums and stuff.
Yeah.
But then after that, it could be 3 days.
Right.
It could be 4 weeks.
It can be a long time. So we go through this little, like, from the time we're working with a buyer and we're showing the property, we're like in constant contact with them, right? Like, you're showing the property, hopefully, a couple times a week. Hopefully you're just writing an offer, but you might have to write multiple offers for them to get in the contract. And so there's like a lot of touch points, throughout that process. Then you get in contract, you got all these instructions you give them, you got the home inspection, and you've got to negotiate the home inspection. And then and then that's actually kind of where, once that home inspection is kind of done, you're losing a lot of touch points, like scheduled touch points and necessitated touch points with the client. Like even the appraisal just kind of happens without even you knowing a lot of times. A lot of times, like you'll instruct your lender to instruct the management company to instruct the appraiser, just so you guys understand
Yeah, you're playing a game of telephone?
yeah, they get a telephone to contact you, so you can contact the selling agent to arrange the appraisal, right? It
Doesn't
never
happen.
happens, never happens. Somewhere along the line, the appraiser just like,
They look up who the listing agent is
they
and they
just
call
look
them
at,
directly.
because it's more efficient for them, and they're pretty busy, so, yes.
Does the home appraisal always come after inspections?
Not always,
Not always.
and contractually, it's obligated to be ordered upon removal of the inspection period.
Right, but sometimes, like if you use Keller Mortgage, they actually order it on day one.
Okay.
Right, which is good or bad.
It depends on which side you're
Yeah,
on.
but once the appraisal's done, we're just kind of in a dead period, and the clients are, they're getting ready, they're packing, they're getting ready to move. We just have a lot of reasons to call them, so you've got to invent reasons to take advantage of them. And usually, what I would do is just like schedule a day in your week, and every agent does this. Every successful agent does this. They probably have a day of the week where they call all their clients, not their leads, not their prospects, but their actual clients, who they're in contract with. They call them to touch base and talk about where they're at in the transaction. So loan updates are a good one. So hopefully you have a lender that will give you periodic loan updates that you can pass along to your client. But that's a good week. You want to stay. I think if it's me working with a buyer once a week, I want to talk to my lender and find out where we are, so I can tell them where they are.
And escrow, I always touch base with all of them,
So that's
all
a good idea.
parties.
Yeah.
Right, because escrow might not have heard from the lender yet,
Yeah.
even though you talk to the lender and the lender says, oh, yeah, everything's fine. So you talk to escrow and escrow says, yeah, well, we haven't heard anything from the lender. We're waiting on docs, we can't stop closing.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's really good.
Right.
It's good to, there's a subtle fight that goes on. There's an inner battle between lenders and escrow that happens all the time because lenders are always putting escrow in a tough position because they're always waiting. Lenders waiting for escrow to run some numbers so they can issue their closing disclosure.
Yeah.
Conversely, then the escrow is waiting for the lender to produce loan docs.
Yeah.
And once the loan docs arrive, or once we get close to the closing date, everybody's in a hurry to get all this stuff done. And escrow doesn't want to schedule an appointment until the loan docs have arrived, because they've had to reschedule those 1,000 times and they're scheduled tight. So they don't want to schedule someone to sign at 9 and then have to reschedule it for 1 o'clock later because they lost that 9 o'clock appointment. So,
Right.
so there's this inner struggle between the two, and they try to point fingers at each other about whose fault it is. Don't fall for it, just stay out of it. But that's why you stay in contact with both. So
With
you
everything.
really get an
You're
idea
the
what's
puppet
going on.
master,
Yeah.
right? Of
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
The listing agent, the buyers, the lender, escrow, every possible party, you're the one that is making sure you are touching base with every single person and handling everything. That-
Exactly,
Right?
yep.
It makes you stand out to your clients that, wow, you really got it. And then on top of that, not just because we could be calling all these people and they might not have any idea. You can give them a call once a week, but that's why we add those checkpoints in the checklist and opportunities, and we check it off. It's okay to tell your client that you talked to the lender today, you talked to escrow today for updates on the loan status and on closing status, right? The more you put in there, the more it looks like you're working, right? And the more you're doing for the money that you're getting paid by them, right? I mean, it all comes down to that. What am I paying you for?
So I just had a closing last month where I had convinced these people were pre-qualified with like American Acme Ace #1 appraisal, not appraisal, mortgage company out of Aurora, Oregon, right? Some company I'd never heard of before, and they were really happy about it. I was like, I'd never heard of this mortgage company before. This is a super competitive market. I think you should get pre-approved with a company that's mixed heard of, because I don't know anything. And so I got them to go to my lender and they got pre-approved. Well, that kind of turned around and bite me in the butt, because he was a roofer who was unemployed. So they were able to use his, not unemployed, but he was getting unemployment because of the lack of work. So they were able to use his unemployment and his employment to kind of qualify for something. But then under her job, her comp plan changed. So she was working 40 hours a week before and getting like 10 hours a week of overtime that the bank could actually like count as income, right? Because it was a history of it. But it changed. And so when they went to verify her employment, they said, oh no, she doesn't work that way anymore. Now she only works 40 hours a week, but she's gonna make this much money. So it's really like, okay, but do you have a pay stub showing how much she makes? No. Do you have a letter that says it? Kind of. So they got a letter that said she makes this much a year, but because of all the other changes, the underwriter was looking at it going,
Underwriter,
this doesn't
shut
add
that
up.
down real
Yeah,
fast,
that doesn't make any
right?
sense, right? And so we thought we had a workaround on it, and we thought we'd appeased it, and then they sent it off to the mortgage insurance company because they want 34% down. And the mortgage insurance company said, no way, we're not lending on this. We're not gonna insure this. So that means no insurance, no loan, right? So my lender looked bad because her job changed, and they all were frustrated because they thought she wasn't doing a good job. She actually did probably the best job she did all year, right? By hustling and getting all this stuff done. They didn't see it that way because they had the pre-approval letter from Aurora, that said they were ready to go. It would have blown up in Aurora all the same. It would have been worse, right?
A week to close.
It would have been late, it would have closed late,
Yeah.
we closed on time and we nailed it, it was a little inconvenient for them. But like, so my point on this is stay on top of your people with the submission of their loan docs. So like, tell your people, hey, make sure if your lender needs something, that you gave it to them yesterday. Like, these are
Yeah.
really, really important things, because time gets tight late. And if things change, don't go get new loans.
No,
Don't open
Don't go
new
buy
credit
furniture.
cards, don't apply for anything.
wait, most important, pay all your bills on time.
Pay all your bills. Like, tell your buyers this, because they need to understand that,
Yeah,
that just because they qualified today, your lender's gonna recheck right before closing.
yeah,
And the
day of
numbers-
closing.
Yeah, it could be the day of closing, like, things could change, so like, these are conversations you should have when you go into contract. Then this would be a conversation you have after you're done with the home inspection, let them remind them, hey, if your lender needs anything, we need to get it to them yesterday.
Yeah.
Just so.
And anything that they ask for,
Mhm.
they need it.
Yeah,
And if you wanna buy a house, they need it.
yeah, they're not gonna trick the lender,
No,
they're not gonna trick the lender. So, or the underwriter, or the mortgage insurance company.
Right.
Yeah.
And ideally, a really great lender is gonna get all of that stuff while you're still searching for a home,
Mhm.
right? That's the best qualified buyer you can ever have, is one that the lender has already gathered all the employment verification, their pay stubs, the whole 9 yards. And then they just need a couple documents to update as we get
But they
pending.
will, they
and
will
as
go
you
back and
go.
verify, but they
Yeah,
will go
they
back and
will.
verify.
Yeah.
So,
Well, they
changes
have
will-
to, right? Because what if they lost their job?
Yeah,
Especially in today's world with where we're at.
Yeah, some people don't understand the urgency part of it, and I don't understand that. Like,
well, they just,
you have to be on them.
yeah, they're like, well, I just bought a car last week, and I just showed up and told them how much I made, and I got it. Now, that's, in their mind, it's that easy.
Yeah.
Like, you even see, like, seasoned, like, I was just, one of our agents, I overheard a conversation, and he just moved in here, and he was, kind of complaining about how he couldn't get a loan. It's like, it's not, it's like, you have to show it.
You have to show income.
You have to show income, right?
And when you're self-employed, you have to have 2 years of income
Right.
in the same job.
Yeah, so it's like, this is complicated stuff, you're asking for a lot of money.
Yeah, right. It's like you're getting an $850,000 loan.
Right,
It's not a $50,000 car,
yeah,
right?
yeah, it's a big deal, so.
Yeah.
You got a question?
Kind of, yeah, when your buyer isn't using like your preferred lender, so you don't have a situation where you know that
Yeah.
person, the lender.
Yeah.
When do you reach out to their lender and like establish that
Day one.
communication, day one? and
Day one
just make
of
sure that
contract.
They're sending you everything that they're gonna send to the
Yeah,
buyer as well.
Yep.
Day one of the
And you
contract.
can talk about it with your buyer.
They've been granted permission in the purchase agreement to
Yep.
talk to the parties involved.
Yep.
About material things, so it's like, you wanna form that partnership with them right away, like, hey, if you need something, let me know. Like, let's keep this, let's have a thread of emails, we're all on the same thread, so I can help you get what you need, and then if you have problems with them or whatever. I mean, and again, there's also an adversarial relationship sometimes between the lender and the buyer too, where the buyer gets really mad because the lender's asking for stuff they don't wanna give them, and the lender's mad because they're not getting the stuff they need quick enough, and everybody's covering their own ass. So again, you're the one orchestrating all this, you moderate this, you just gotta like, keep it on track, keep it refocused. The lender needs what the lender needs, get them what they need, and if the lender's not doing what they're supposed to, then you need to put the screws to them. Like,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I used to love that.
Yeah.
That's the best part, when you get to choose someone out.
Yeah.
Very nicely.
Yeah.
I sit and hash out the mean email that I want to send, and then I'd erase it, and then go very nicely,
Yeah.
but strongly.
Yeah.
Word. And tell them what I need and what I think. And then when Peter had to do it, it was really bad.
Yeah. you gotta get to it.
But remember though, that goes back to the very beginning of the transaction, when you're creating that transaction timeline and those templated emails that you should have for each party, the lender is one of those, right? And I always CC, when it comes to the lender and the escrow officer, I actually CC the lender and the escrow officer on both of those as well. So that they have, even though I'm including their information in the timeline, I still want them to also know that they're aware of each other, right?
Yeah. Do you ever see like the buyers with the lender, like, it gets to that point where you're like, I
Yep.
need to really get involved?
Yep.
Yeah, be professional,
Absolutely.
don't throw someone under the bus unless they've really earned it.
Yeah.
Like, we all do this in real estate, like, when things go sideways, we need to blame somebody, because everybody wants to blame us.
Yeah.
And people just want to blame the person who's in front of them, probably, right? So we want to deflect that blame by blaming somebody else. And so sometimes it's not your fault. I would venture that it's all our fault, because as the ones at the top of the food chain, like, if your clients are, I've thought about this, as we're at the top of the food chain, right? Escrow companies buy us lunch, who's buying lunches first, right? Escrow companies, mortgage companies, they're all buying lunch. But starters coming in today to buy you guys lunch, because you're at the top of the food chain, right? So you get to kind of decide who your clients work with, right? You have that influence. Like, you don't have the ultimate say, right? They do, but you have a lot of influence over them. And so I think we are ultimately responsible for everything that goes on in the transaction. If we handle it that way, then we have a better chance of being successful with better, happy clients. But if we don't, then we start placing blame everywhere, then we're sloppy, we're not gonna get that repeat business, which is the lifeblood of what your careers are gonna be. Like, referral business is the best business you can get. Like, if you come, instead of chasing down some obsidian leading cicada, or, you know, some stranger at an open house, someone's calling you and asking to work with you, right? That's awesome.
That's your goal.
That's goal, that's what you wanna do, right? But in order to do that, you gotta be a master, right? You got to master the whole thing, that if you're in charge of everything, it's all your responsibility, so treat it that way, you know, keep everybody in line.
How you handle it that last week is
Yeah.
gonna make it the biggest difference,
Mhm.
right? Because that's your last impression on them. So you want it to be as smooth and as steady as possible. So checking in with them, have you scheduled your movers, you know? Are you prepared? Are you ready? Do we have closing date? Or we have closing date and I'm gonna be there, and, you know, just making sure that everything is great and wonderful and that they're always happy no matter which side of the transaction they're on.
Absolutely.
And then we get into closing.
Yeah.
The actual closing day.
The one thing though, while we're kind of going through this process, if something does come up where there's an issue, you know, take some ownership of it. You know, don't dwell on it, learn from it, be vulnerable to some degree, right? Everybody makes mistakes, it's okay to make a mistake. Own it, learn from it, move on, don't dwell on it. Nobody wants to be apologized for a week and a half about the same mistake over and over again, right? Apologize one time, it's move on.
Done.
But if you hide from it, if you deflect blame, then you're not gonna learn.
Is a transaction coordinator the same thing as like the escrow officer and stuff?
No.
Is that necessary to use?
Which one? The TC?
I just got introduced to someone named Gilbert by.
So she's a TC that handles your paperwork
Okay,
and helps you out in submitting. Now, normally, we highly recommend that you do all your stuff in your first few transactions, because if you don't know what to do or what's happening during it, you don't learn that, then how are you gonna be able to explain stuff to your clients, right? So typically, we really highly recommend your first 5, 6, 12, that you're doing it yourself, because really, at 12, you're still not busy enough to need a TC,
yeah,
right? TCs come in 2 places. There's 2 ways that you bring a TC in. One, you are so slammed and so busy that your paperwork, you don't have time to do the paperwork, right? Because you're so busy showing houses and listing and doing everything that you need help. That's like your first hire, right? So, and I think it's 24 is what is in the
Yeah.
MREA.
Could be.
But-
I think it just has to do with,
It has to do with where,
yeah.
just your busyness, right? Because you could have 24 pending, it's pending transactions,
What do you
right?
mean 24, like after, what do you mean 24?
24 total a year, like in a year,
Oh,
you
like
have
once you
24
reach that number.
transactions in a year. But you could have like 6 listings and that picks up and that takes more than a buyer necessarily would. So it all is leveraged on your time and your ability and where you're comfortable with needing to hire out your help.
I really appreciate all that, so I was like, I don't feel like I need your help quite yet.
Yeah, but
you
it's
don't.
great to have one in your pocket for
Yeah.
when you do get busy, right? Because it can happen overnight. But all of a sudden, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so busy and paperwork slipping, you're not getting it to Kelly on time, right? And, or the other time is if it's really like that one thing that drags you down and takes you 5 times as long to get it done. For some people, designing and marketing and that kind of stuff just like terrifies them, and it could take someone 15 minutes and them 3 hours. So if your paperwork portion of it is that for you, then that would be the time that you would want to work with someone, but you're gonna want to still understand and know how it works, what you're doing, how to do it. So don't just like pass it off and let it go, right?
Your transaction coordinator, like if you're hiring a service, like typically what they're gonna do is they're gonna, you know, once you go into contract, they're gonna send out that timeline that we talk about. They're gonna send out the property disclosures to get signed by whoever it is that needs to sign them, or send it to the, if you're a listing agent, they'll send it to the buyer, if the buyer's agent, send the buyer. I don't quite get it. Like I get it when I'm busy,
Some of them
right?
are more.
Some of them are more like
Yeah.
someone who's doing data input for your listings. What I've really leaned on then in my career was when I'd have a lot of listings and I would need someone to like input listings for me, input photos for me, and then sending out the paperwork as it comes up. You know, like seller's property disclosure, making sure the preliminary title report's getting out, making sure that someone who's following along with a loan, that sort of stuff. That's what I've leaned on assistance before, but I haven't ever used someone just strictly for like,
For handling the TC part.
yeah, I just never thought, in my mind, it's like I could do all that in about 30 minutes.
That's why you're a principal broker.
And then,
Well, but it's not-
but you can get there.
No, it's not, but it's not
It's
hard,
not that,
right?
it's really not hard. And the other part of it too is if you are hiring a TC, they're an extension of you. So you want to make sure that they're handling your business and your clients the way you would do it. And if you haven't done it yet, you have no idea how you would do it, right? Because I know there are some out there that aren't putting the checklist in, that aren't sending out those automated emails to the clients, keeping them updated on it. So if they're not doing that for you, and then you're not doing that for you, now your clients are being disserviced because they're not getting the high quality service that you set them up that they're gonna get, right? So whoever you do end up hiring, if you get to that point for a TC, you want full details, right? What are you doing? How often are you contacting them? Are you getting in my CRM and are you doing the checklists and are you doing automated emails, keeping status every day of what's happening? And then the other important question is, are they a principal broker? Do they have the ability to help with addendums if necessary, right? Because some do that and some don't. So it all depends on what level of service you need. And then if they represent you well.
You guys are all like this really, really exciting spots in the career where you kind of like see the future. You have an idea of what it could be. And they talked about this a lot at Mega Camp. And it's one thing that's, I wrote it down the other day because I just want to remember it. I don't want to forget this, is to, work from the start at the end goal, right? This is where you want to be, and then work it backwards on how you're going to get there. And you all have time to do that right now. Because once you get busy and we start talking about transaction coordinators, you're going to be so in the moment that it's really difficult to have that kind of clarity to look backwards and have an idea how you built it, how you want it to be. But like really take the time to like think about the processes. Like every day you should be asking yourself that. Like after every class, you should like spend a few minutes reflecting on what you learned today and how it's going to apply to where you want to go, and then start building it backwards.
Because you're building a business.
Really helpful too, along with that, alliance transaction coordinators, like under opportunities, like we talked about last Monday. You just go to like the documents and you start looking at like under contract, all the documents that could be there, and just start thinking about what you need to have for your transaction, just getting it plugged in right away. It's just
Right.
super basic checklist.
Well,
Like,
yeah, I mean, here's an example, like, when I was really, really busy, it felt like I was writing the same addendum over and over and over again. So you know what I did? I just templated. I just made a template of the addendum. So then I can have my TC go in, and my TC, she was licensed, but my TC would go in and she would just do it for me, because it's worded the way I wanted it to, like, hey, we're in this situation, could you please, write the credit addendum up? Absolutely, or the counter offer, like it got to the point where I could even have the counter offer, because it was like, the counter offer was just so great, whether it was on price or it was on, whatever it was, I had one teed up for almost every situation, so it was done.
Yeah.
So that it was not something I had to touch.
Just like your buyer broker commission that you gotta send over to escrow, right?
Yeah.
Write it out.
Make
Write it
one.
out exactly how you want it. Leave the spot for the dollar amount. Leave the spot for who the agents are on each side of the party. Bam, it's done. Then you just pull it out and plug it in.
Yeah,
Simplify your life.
like I do believe in templating some things.
Some things,
Yeah,
yeah.
for some things, like the
Especially when we always have
Like your-
finance.
your purchase agreement, like if you go in, make a purchase agreement, go into your residential real estate sale agreement, and your condo agreement, and just go, maybe make a template, fill in the top portion that has your name,
Right,
company name, has the license numbers and addresses and email addresses, so you don't have to fill it out every single time. The filling out isn't what takes so much time, it's looking for it, it's kind of tedious, so find it, like, template it, and you don't.
yeah, and actually on your contact information stuff, if you go in and create a contact
Yes.
of you in zip forms and add all that information in there and
Should
save
auto-populate.
that contact, then when you go to parties, you add you as a party and bam, it's gonna fill out all the
Auto-populates that way.
information.
I
Mhm.
didn't know that. I've used Dot so much more, so I have that.
I know, yeah. Fun stuff.
Okay, lead closing, so back on track.
Yeah.
This is a fun one because it just goes everywhere, right? It just goes everywhere.
Absolutely.
So stay in contact, right?
Yep.
We know that we can't get an appointment with escrow until we have loan docs, likely.
Nope,
unless you
they
have a
won't.
Really, really good, unless you and or your lender have a really good relationship with the escrow company, you're not likely to get,
No, because they could get the loan docs and they could be wrong.
yeah.
And then and it's a lot, you guys, it takes them quite a bit of time. They get the loan docs, they have to print them all, go through them page by page, and they could be a big stack of them, right? They gotta double check everything, rerun numbers, that's when they run the closing statement, send it over to the lender goes over it again, sends it back over. If there's a mistake, then it goes back and forth, right? And then finally, they can prepare and get ready for the closing. So they could say, I don't have loan docs yet, and be like, well, let's, schedule it for 3:00. They won't, because they can't guarantee it'll be ready.
So they have to have the closing disclosure 4 days before the date.
Before printing it, before they sign the docs, 3 days before the buyer signs.
Okay.
Yes, but they still will go over it again when they get the docs. Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
so then,
I think it's good to inform your buyer on, because they could get frustrated on what's taking so long. It's like, I filled out, I gave them all my information, how come they haven't print the loan docs already? They said to print them out, we're just waiting for that, like, it sounds like it should be done real quickly. The printing of the loan docs isn't the actual, the time consuming part, it's the underwriting that goes up to it, right? So like I said,
yeah,
that it has to go through underwriting again, so even though your buyer may be underwritten, the property's not underwritten, so once the appraisal's done, the lender will submit it to the underwriter for review. And then if they're not putting 20% down, it's possible that there's mortgage insurance involved, then it has to go their underwriter too, right? So the more your clients understand what goes into the process, the more they know how complicated it is, and the more patient they probably will be, because maybe it makes them nervous too, I don't know, so maybe you should, try to keep them.
read your client, right?
Yeah, you can tell them, but then say, don't worry, they do this every day, this is just, I just want you to understand the process.
So if someone's using an FHA loan, it would go from the lender to the underwriter for the credit card insurance.
Yeah,
So that can take a little bit of time, so make sure in that dead period, you're explaining to your clients why it's taking so long, especially as it gets closer to the closing date.
Yeah.
Because everybody gets a little nervous again. I think there's 2 parts of the transaction where people are super nervous.
when they submit their offer, because they're,
Okay, 3.
you get the butterflies in your
Yeah.
belly, nervous and stressed
4.
over whether or
So,
not we're
yeah.
gonna get the house, right?
And then there's, oh shit, we got it, I hope it inspects, right? Right, and then there is like, oh
I
my
think I'm
gosh,
slowly turning you into a customer kind of guy.
yeah, and then, yeah, right, and then towards the end, when we're all waiting for the docs, everybody's nervous at that point again.
Yeah.
Like, everybody's, what's happening, what's gone wrong, how come it's not going as planned? Well, unfortunately,
That's when you
last
go,
minute is planned.
did you buy a
right?
new car? No.
Yeah, like-
I hope you didn't.
Yeah, literally, everything is planned to the last minute. Like,
It
It's
is,
the way it all is
yeah.
orchestrated, they're all, thank you for putting that word in my head, orchestrated. But like,
Yeah.
it's all planned to happen at the last minute.
Yeah.
So,
And then, so what about closing day?
Yep.
Do you guys go to escrow for the closing? Are they back doing it again?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know if they.
well, I
took it
don't
back
think,
away.
I don't think.
Always check with your escrow officer with COVID. I mean, it was always, we were at the table. Are both sides of the table? No, it's just one party is at the closing table at a time.
Mhm.
If it's your client, see if you can be there. You don't need to be there. There's nothing that you're gonna sign. If you ever, I always ask to relook at the settlement statement with my clients to make sure that it looks right to me as well as to my clients, just, to show like you are there for something, right? And then just to be there to congratulate them. And then that would also be when you could ask for a review, right? If you have your laptop or tablet, you can have them just go on and do it right there while they're waiting, because the escrow officer is gonna go make copies. Okay, and that takes a little bit of time. So while they're over making copies, that's when you chat with them. So happy for you. Would you mind doing a review for me? You could do it really quick right here. Have it prepped and ready for them to do. Talk about when you're gonna meet them at the home to give them the keys, because you're not giving them to them at the closing table. We used to.
I was gonna say, I was about to ask.
Yeah, no, because they don't actually take ownership until it records, right? And what if closing or possession is 2 days later? Right, so, you keep the keys, usually the key's still in the lockbox and the rest of the keys are in the home on the kitchen counter, which is usually what happens. And always don't forget the garage door openers, because people will drive off with them in their car, right?
I bought a house where we closed, signed all of our paperwork, and then it didn't record properly, and I couldn't get my keys, so
Yeah.
it's not normal, but it happens.
Yeah, you never know, right? So, you want to be there for the joy and the happiness of it and still be like, well, congratulations, you're homeowners now. I'll call you when it records. Right? And then again.
Yes, like when if I have a closing and if everything, I got all my people on board, so I'm working with my escrow officer and I'm working with my lender, right? But I'm sitting there at the table with all my people and my clients, it's kind of a good moment for you, right?
Yeah.
Like you're like, everybody's there, and like, wow, this is all our team, it's the whole team's here, right? It's kind of a lasting impression that you get to put on them, and you get to thank them for the business. I always thank them for the opportunity. I don't like that.
Thank your lender too,
Yep.
right? Because they will be there.
My lender always shows up.
Mine did too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think not every lender does that. I think most lenders don't do it.
Really?
Yeah. But again, it's like,
Make sure your
it
lender
seems
does.
foolish, because again, what
Right?
do we want? Like, every deal you do should be worth at least another half deal, right?
Yeah.
Ideally, right? So every time you close a transaction, you want at least a 50% chance that you're gonna close another transaction from this person or from a referral, right? So having everybody there
Mhm.
kind of,
Not lender wants a refi.
the lender wants to,
Right?
the
Or
lender
their
should see
client.
it as like a full transaction, right? Lender should see it as a
Yeah.
refi and hopefully another purchase, right?
Yeah.
And you're looking at it, at least I want another purchase, maybe another rebuy, you know, so there's like a great opportunity for you to think, but you don't want to lose that opportunity, yes.
We're about to go to gifts.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, because we mentioned the commercial warranties, and I really was thinking that giving them the first year home warranty would be worth it, so that you cover your butt and they're happy in case anything breaks in the first year. Is that still common?
That isn't usually just the closing gift.
No, not just that, not just
Yeah.
that, but
That's
part of
usually,
it.
sometimes they might throw it in, sometimes they don't. It's more on the listing side, I think, that you see that they might throw it in because they're gonna make more commission off of it than a buyer is. Closing gift is something that is a lasting memory of you that they're going to see, right?
For tax purposes, you can only write off $50 of that.
But,
Per client. So if it's at family of 4, you can write 200.
right, but also if you have your name on it, your logo on it, now it's
Marketing.
promotional,
Yeah.
marketing.
Yeah.
So you can go up a little bit more.
Yeah.
Right? But you don't want it to be, you have to think, whatever it is that you get them, are they gonna display it? Are they gonna see it? Are they gonna toss it? Are they gonna, hide it?
Mhm.
Right? It all depends on what it is. So there's tons of stuff out there. And sometimes if it's something that is really nice, maybe your name's on the back of it, right? Which they might not see, but it's something that is memorable enough to them that they know every time they look at it, my realtor gave that to me, right? It doesn't have to stand with your logo and stuff on it, because really no one wants that in their house.
Rochelle's doing some really cool client gift stuff. I can't remember what it was. She's doing some really cool personal stuff that's repeatable.
Yeah,
And like, I think this is a great thing to bring up about this kind of stuff. Because your client gift is kind of your first step at marketing to them as, because we know the lifeline, right? We know the lifeline of a lead, right? It peaks at the time of the
at the
offer.
day of close.
The day of closing, it peaks and it drops off, right?
The next day
So
is
you
at
gotta
the
start-
bottom.
So you gotta start budgeting for how you're gonna market to them until they peak.
For the next 3 to 7 years, because
yeah.
that's the next upswing.
Yeah.
The time frame that most people now are buying an additional home, right? And then at the very top is like the 46 months, I think, is from the top of the 7-year to the top of the peak when they close again, right?
And so like the MREA, the Millionaire Real Estate Agent, they're budgeting, so they've got a budget in mind, they're like, okay, this is what I'm gonna spend on this lead to maintain this lead for the next 7 years or whatever it could be. So you probably should, the really organized realtors taking that money out of their escrow, out of their closing, out of their commission check, putting it into a separate account where they're gonna spend that money and they're gonna spend, they're gonna live off the rest of the allocate, right? But
Right.
like, so have a budget in mind, keep that in mind, but that's your first step, that's your first marketing, that's your first new marketing piece to your new client, right? Because they're your new prospect, because they're not your clients.
So then that's where you can go, and we have different speakers come in and talk about different things for closing gifts, right? Like, or how to stay in touch with your contacts. So like Terry and Kim, they do amazing pop buys. Let me shut that door, thank you. Settle down out there. They do amazing pop buys, and they do them every single month. And Terry is very creative, and she's on Pinterest, so she finds these cute little ideas. She gets most of it up from the dollar store. Typically, they range from $5 to $10 for each pop buy. They don't give it to every single client, but they give it to their key clients, right? Or in a key area where they're wanting to get more business from. Like Terry will do her neighborhood right there that she lives in, because she moved to a new area and she wants to capture that. That's part of your budget, right? If you have an annual event for your clients, and events can be anything. You can do pie days, you can do movies, you can do barbecue,
Yeah.
you
my
can
neighborhood-
invite, you can pay for them to go to a hopscape, right? Whatever it
That's good.
is that you choose to do, that's part of your touching, that's giving back. And the main ones that you want to do, you want it to be in your A client list, which are people that are going to refer you, that are your, really close sphere, that will send people to you, people that speak well of you, that when Justin comes in, he's going to talk about your top 4 or 5 people in your life that will bring you business. They're going to be in that group, right? Whether they bought a home from you or sold a home with you, that's going to be in your A group. So.
But then, put this down, so you're gonna do this for sure, right? Make a note, so, and trust me, don't miss this, because I have, and it makes it really awkward if you don't. So, you gotta make a habit of staying in touch with your clients after closing. So, that means within a week, set a reminder to call them within a week of closing, and then at a month of closing, and then,
Yeah,
at least some reminder for
6
the
months.
year, for the anniversary of their purchase, and always remind, so start a habit of staying in touch with them.
Yeah.
Because it's weird to reach out 3 years later and be like, hey, how was the house I sold you 3 years
They'd
ago?
be like, why are you?
We don't live there anymore, we listed it with somebody else.
Never know what's gonna happen,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's funny you said that. I wrote 1 week, 1 month, 6 month, 1 year checking.
Yeah.
Before you said that.
For sure,
Yeah.
for sure,
Yep. for
yeah,
sure.
definitely do check-ins, right?
Such a-
It's still 20 minutes,
Well, 15.
that would go so fast.
It's closing week.
I have a question about, when you do close, the documents you need and command for the closing documents.
Yeah.
Yes,
Do you close from escrow?
Yes,
yes,
So
Yeah.
they'll like email us to you?
yeah,
yeah, so
you'll
you wanna
do
be on
that.
top of it.
The settlement statement will come for sure.
Okay.
You may, depending on the custom of the area, like in the metro area, it's really common for us the escrow companies to give that qualified substitute statement, which is, you guys know what that statement is? It's part of FERPTA, it's part of FERPTA laws. So basically, the escrow company is saying that we have determined this person is a US citizen.
Yeah.
And if there's any kind of tax liability issue, then we will deal with it somehow.
Yeah.
That's all I need to know, that's all you need to know, don't
Yeah.
go too much. But, so that's why we request a copy of it, just because FERPTA got to be a big deal.
Well, it
Actually,
is. It is a big deal because the buyers end up actually paying.
Yeah, the buyer could actually end up paying for it, although you hear all these stories about how it happens, but no one can ever, it's so anecdotal. It's very anecdotal, no one actually knows anybody who's actually paid somebody else's taxes.
I'm sure we had an escrow officer come in that they've had.
They had one like 7 years ago, probably, they've since kind of nipped it in the bud, I'm actually considering removing it from our
Removing
requirement, because I just think the industry's taking it off.
They're
our
taking
lap.
care of it, why
Yeah.
do we need to have them sign it
Exactly,
too?
but
Yeah.
we haven't got it yet, just so
So we expect those from escrow.
from us.
Yeah,
It's like in Washington,
So
they have
ask.
a qualified substitute statement, so if you were licensed in Washington, you probably wouldn't get one.
you don't, huh?
And then you were saying, like, obviously, don't buy a car and furniture, all like before closing
Nothing.
and stuff, but that's because the lender keeps pulling their like.
They will
debt
pull it.
to
They pull their
ratio.
credit on the day of closing.
Yeah, or the day before or
A
something
couple,
like that.
yeah, I've always seen they will pull it like even hours before they sign it. just to make sure that nothing has changed in their credit. So anything that could change it, even submitting for a credit application,
Yeah.
bam, ding, that could bring
Like
their
a
score
credit
down.
card.
And if they're
Yeah.
like right on the verge, right?
Mhm.
It could drop them enough to where now they don't qualify at all, and it's happened.
That's fragile.
Oh, I had people moving in on the day of closing because we were moving in. We had possession on the day of closing, and the wife didn't pay the credit card statement for 2 months, and they
Oh,
no longer qualified for
no.
buying the house. So I had to move them out, and the seller had already moved and was prepared to close.
Yeah.
So that sucked.
Make it very clear to your people.
Oh, I did.
Don't, no, nothing.
No, you
but
do.
we
But
will
that's why it's like you
that.
have to continually, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's the same conversation, but you still can't control what they do. The husband was pissed,
I like that.
but, you know, then that was their deal. I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
sorry.
How, like,
Yeah,
how is it with like divorced people when they're selling their home?
it's
Like,
very hard.
Yeah. I can-
It's very hard being that middle person on a
I
divorce.
don't know, I just stay out of it. Like, I just, maybe I have this air that I don't care,
Yeah.
right? But like, you literally can't care, like, just start, like, represent the house, right?
Yeah.
Just represent, just like thinking in your mind, I'm just representing this house, and this house wants me to sell it for as much money as I can, for as quickly as I can. I'm staying out of all the minutia. Just be like, if they start going down that path, it's like, I'm
Depends-
sorry, this is between you guys, I don't really care.
It
Yeah.
depends on the situation, like we've had one, hang on, Danielle, where the wife did not want to sell the house and the husband was the fault for the divorce. And so that's where it got really
Did you
difficult.
grab a list?
So it took like a year to even get to the point to where we could even get it on the market because of the difficulties of that situation.
And, but getting in the middle, like you said, getting in the middle of that,
Yeah.
it doesn't work.
Oh, no, not at all.
Because you don't know who's gonna win,
Yeah.
right? Because if it gets nasty like
I'm
that,
gonna,
then somebody could eventually buy the other one out.
yeah,
And then you don't know.
and then you get nothing.
Then who, if you're on the wrong side of that, then they're gonna hire their own agent, you're out.
Do they
So,
ever file a list pendants then, or whatever that's called, where like they're like, you don't have rights to sell the house, we're both on it, and then the title's all on it?
well, so unless both parties sign,
Yeah.
we can't sell the house.
No,
So it wouldn't make any
No.
difference. So again, that's why you need to stay in good terms.
don't
with both
forget your
parties.
question.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
No, that's okay. So this is happening to me right now with an op city lead. And actually I talked to Vicky and she was like, just have, the guy, just have him sign, like it's fine with the ex-wife. They're not fully divorced yet.
But they have a decree. The
Well,
divorce decree.
It's really complicated, but
Yeah.
anyways, I just got a call from her lawyer saying that to go ahead with the sale, but the proceeds are basically gonna have to sit in a trust.
Yeah.
until they figure it out.
Yeah, that's how that.
Yeah,
so the
and
grant-
escrow will get a copy and talk to the attorney on that.
In Oregon, usually there's lawyers involved, Oregon's not as a no-fault state, so the lawyers are working towards just getting it done as quickly as possible. Because there's no real reward for drawing it out. Now, for the lawyers at least, maybe they get to bill more, but like, but there may be a party in the transaction who wants to stick it to the other party in the transaction.
Yeah.
Despite their own nose, and just cut it off, right? So you do have to deal with that to some degree, but I just stay out of it. I think the best way is just to not. Like, don't listen, like, if they start going on a rant about how he's a jerk or she's a jerk,
Don't be.
just be like, listen, I understand this is a difficult time for you. But
Yeah.
like, it really, like, if it's not for real estate, to sell a house, I just, you know,
No.
you gotta stay focused
Yeah.
here.
Stay professional.
Yeah,
Mhm.
stay professional.
And
It's gonna be easy to relate to either, one, probably. but Don't. Doesn't do anything.
No. Okay, so then after closing, which we kind of touched on a little bit.
But
Yeah.
not, they have a plan.
But yeah, you need to, the smart plans, right? Smart plans are in there for past clients. That needs to start the day of closing. And that will just, it will drip on them with texts and emails and calls for you to do. There's hundreds of them in there, you guys. You gotta find the right one, make sure you edit them and make sure it's from you, because if someone else created it, they can have their signature in there, which we've had that happen here, and the client goes, who the heck is Nick? So make sure you go in and check out every single one of the drips to see, or drip, that's what they used to
that's
call
like
it.
an automatic.
Yes, it's an automatic system that goes out,
I kind
so,
of touched on it a little bit. in
I would-
command.
Yeah, I would find a theme that you like and write it.
yeah,
Words.
yeah, absolutely.
And so do you have that email that goes out, you know, just want to thank you again,
Mhm.
you know,
Put it in your words.
yeah, putting your words.
But the smart plans could be a good, like, oh, this is gonna talk to him in a week, and then it's gonna talk to him in a month, and then it's gonna talk to him, and as it goes down, then, oh, look, they cut him and made them all pretty for us. Thank you. They're only doing that because they want one.
That's not true. Okay, it's true.
Thank you.
See if you guys are here to have lunch. Oh, we got a question over here. A big old long one. Tracy, child support is a credit issue too. Yes. That's not the only one too. My client had fully paid off all his child support years before. That was never made official. So he was scrambling with the ex-wife to get documentation signed, saying he'd in fact made all the payments so that he could close on the new house he was buying. Luckily, she was local and they were on good terms. So she signed it right away. Seen this happen before where they aren't on good terms and there's no way in heck he's gonna sign that off,
Yeah.
right? Or that she's gonna do it. Or what if they moved to another country, right? So knowing all, and it sometimes to the buyers or the sellers, it seems like we're prying into their information, but everything is vital to be able to buy or sell a house.
That's one thing you want to look at, the preliminary title. report.
Yes, because it'll be on there.
It'll be on there, so.
Yep, and if there's a divorce, or what if the spouse is still on it, but the spouse has been dead for 2 years? You've seen that, right? The big
I'm
one,
dealing with that one with the selling thing. And it's all depends on how they listed it on the title. So I have 2 lots. One
yeah,
is husband and wife. I
And
don't
one is
know.
tenants in common.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
the other one's not. And I was like, oh, she passed away years ago.
yeah,
So the one that's not, some tenants in common, that
Right.
they should have a will, it
yeah,
just
She
gets in probate.
She did have, well, he's on the East Coast too. So she did, everything went to him,
Okay,
but it's weird because they have everything was in a trust or something.
Yeah.
They're all went to him. Hasn't sold it, I'm not worried about it. But when the time comes.
it's probably good. I mean, if it's all in a trust, then
Yeah.
usually it's pretty good shape.
Yeah.
But when you run into trouble is if it, like we had one where, and I told you this, probably you guys have heard the story, where a couple bought a property before they were married, they took vesting as tenants in common, they, then they purchased a house, got married, never changed the deed type, never just changed the vesting type. So when she passed away, got a will, it went to her heir, which was their son. And then when he passed away, it went to the ex-husband. And so you have the widowed husband and the ex-husband who have ownership rights to this house. And the ex-husband didn't even know it. And so, like the day of closing or 2 weeks before closing, escrow's like, hey, by the way, we goofed up here. We need to get, the heir to sign off on this house. And oh, by the way, he's the ex-husband from 20 years ago. You think his eyes lit up? He was finally like, I finally
Ooh,
got
money.
back at her, right? Right, in his mind probably, who knows, maybe it was, but I think it was, because it took like a month for the lawyers to negotiate with that guy.
oh, yeah, he wanted money.
He wanted money. He
Why
probably got
not,
half.
right?
He
Yeah,
probably got
right.
half.
Yeah.
Isn't that terrible?
Another one that you really want to watch for when you first get your preliminary title report is liens, right? Any liens, tax liens, federal tax liens are the hardest. I actually had a property that I had a couple that were looking to purchase. When we got the prelim, there was massive tax liens against the house. And so escrow, they have to reach out and try to help the seller get a hold of the federal government to see if they can release it or pay it off or, whatever it is. There was state liens, city liens, and federal liens on this property. My clients were moving from Europe. They came out for a short period of time. They looked at the properties, found this one. They went back. So then we had to deal with that from there. We ended up not being able to do anything because the federal government would not release the liens and the sellers couldn't pay it off because it was a different type of market, right? So could never close on it. We had to go look for another house and they were already back in Europe. So video,
Lots of video.
video search and bought a house through video. Mhm. But those are huge, right?
Yeah.
And those are things that if they're there and they're not dealt with ahead of time, it could end up being then you can have a closing date in place, and it's never gonna happen, or it might not happen. It might be delayed, all those things.
The other reason to make sure you're working with a really good escrow officer.
Yes. So closing also, I lost it already.
Was that?
I lost it already.
So
It happens, we're getting old.
So set up a plan on how you're gonna contact your clients. Don't just rely on the drip. Have a plan that reminds you when you need to reach out to people. You know, emails are great, texts are great, phone calls are great. Use all three.
Scan cards,
Yeah, cards, mailers, like use all three.
drop offs. You wanna stop by and check in on them, right? How's the house? How are things going? It's just, I mean, of course, it depends on your relationship.
Yeah.
That you built with your clients. Hopefully your relationships are well enough that you could stop by.
The other thing I want you guys to think about, along with working backwards, and this is part of working backwards, is start building your brand. We talked about this a little bit, but you really need to start building your brand, because you're not gonna have time to do it later.
No,
And you're wasting time, you're wasting opportunities by not building it now, because every one of you are, you're all getting closer to closed deals, and you wanna have that brand in place and you can start marketing. And so, building that brand isn't just done on the internet, it's not just done, on the phone, it's not just done on print advertising. Do it everywhere, like spread that money around a little bit so that, like I used to spend money on Google Ads I used to run Google Ads in 97223, and all it was just a picture of myself and my logo, and that's what I did. And people would say, oh my God, I keep seeing your ad. Well, I didn't change it up. Like I didn't change the content of it. That's why I broke down on that. But like, even though no one called me based upon that, people saw it. When you do that, when somebody sees you over here, and then they touch you over here, and then they meet you over here, it's like they have an idea who you are, and who your brand is. It makes you look bigger than you really are because you're in a lot of places. And so I think it's really important to be diverse and build that brand. Be thinking about it now, like be thinking about your logo, design it yourself if you have to. You can't afford that to do it. Design it
super
yourself.
cheesy, super cheap and easy.
Yeah.
So super cheesy on Canva, like
I love
super
Canva.
easy on Canva, right? I've whipped out quite a few different ones for like 15 minutes.
They're so easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you have to make sure, right? It's not just your logo, it's also the colors and the theme and the fonts.
Yeah.
Make sure whatever font you're using, you're utilizing in multiple places so where that if they see, they're like, oh yeah, that's Kate, right?
Yeah, I took these notes in Vegas. So this is from a marketing chief guru guy. And he it's a little complicated, but I haven't given it a lot of thought yet, but I thought this was really, I wrote it down, so that's probably good. Okay, so he said build a brand. So some of the total tangible and intangible products you provide, your brand's promise, right? So when you're building a brand, what's your brand's promise? What it is you want it to deliver, right?
Yeah.
Define your target group, develop unique positioning, what benefits you offer, a position statement. So that's what this is.
Your value.
Right, your value. Leverage your market, because KW has a good brand, leverage that. Find ways to leverage it different than everybody else does today, right? Maintain presence with past and present customers. And then lean into service issues, and this is kind of what I was touching on earlier. Lean into service issues and failures. Embrace the failures, respond with grace and solutions, and then move on, right?
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be apologized to for 7 days straight. So, but focus on those 5 things. Build your brand out. Like it's super important. Like, yeah, you're all doing transactions. Most of you are doing transactions right now, and you're losing opportunities to build your brand if you haven't set it in place yet. So
Right.
start that now.
And so when you do find something,
Yeah.
make sure that you continue it.
Every time
Right.
when you guys get to listing and you're going to Austin to buy like one of our red signs, I cringe a little bit because I'm like, you guys, like,
You're losing
the good
that.
thing about being here at Keller Williams is that you get to build your brand along with ours,
Yeah.
as opposed to
Yeah.
at Coldwell Banker when you only get to build their brand. you
So
know?
yes, the KW logo has to be the same size as what yours is, but they have different color styles and themes, right? You don't have to have the big red KW on there unless it flows with the rest of your theme. You can go with the gray toned one.
Yeah.
Still there, right? Then yours can pop a little bit more. But you want it to blend, so you want them to still kind of look for the.
Yeah, like I said, build on the KW brand,
Mhm.
right? Like have it work along with it. Doesn't have to be in absence
Yeah.
of it, but, or a contrast to it, but build your brand.
Yeah. Yeah, all right.
Cool.
Hey, look at that, 1 o'clock. So Justin actually had another appointment, which is why he's providing lunch, because he'll be here about 1:15. So if you're staying for Justin's class, you can grab lunch and eat while we wait for him to arrive. He's gonna be covering like your top people that will be your referral partners, right? That are gonna position you in a place where they trust that person, so they're gonna trust that they're recommending you. Okay? Good class, really, really good class. Comes from this upstream model, but
Which I know.
anyway,
I have a copy. Yep.
I talked
Okay.
to him all the time.
Awesome, thank you all.
Yeah.
Enjoy lunch.
All right, Austin, you stop recording
Um,
for right now.
I had